Welcome to Tomes and Tales. Today's story takes us into the farmlands of the American Midwest, where a private investigator, conspiracy theorist, and a psychic are trying to solve a missing persons case involving crop circles and alien abductions. They get a lot more than they bargained for. PJ Reynolds was a podcaster with a popular show exploring conspiracy theories. His specialty was UFOs, and he was firmly convinced that the government were colluding with aliens, allowing them to abduct humans for research in exchange for advanced technology. He also entertained the theory that crop circles, those huge intricate patterns in crop fields, were not actually the work of hoaxers, but were in fact a way of luring people into the aliens' trap. A recent case was his chance to at last test his theory and reveal the truth to the world. A group of teenagers had been reported missing after going out one night to a recently created local crop circle with the hope of spotting some UFOs. Now, the police had been left baffled by the case with no clear evidence of a crime at the scene. Of course, Reynolds thought that the cops were in on the act. He enlisted the help of two old friends, Mossbank, a private investigator, and Devlin, a regular guest on his show, who claimed that she had psychic abilities that let her read other people's minds and get visions of the future. Our story picks up with the three investigators at the scene itself in the late afternoon. The crop circles themselves were vast, but after navigating all of the twists and turns, the group found themselves in the central circle. A closer inspection revealed to Mossbank that there were burn marks on the ground, strangely absent from the police report. Reynolds interpreted this as evidence of a landing craft. Devlin touched the burn marks and she had a premonition. She saw herself on the ground in the same circle later that evening with the smell of smoke in the air. Fast forward to sundown and the group had put their plans in place. Reynolds and Devlin set up all their equipment in the centre of the crop circle. PJ readied all of his recording devices. At last it was time to capture the truth on camera. Devlin went into a deep trance, ready to make contact with whatever being was out there. Mossbank, on the other hand, was over at the small farmhouse next to the crop circles. In his early research, he'd read very little about the inhabitants in the local news reports, and he wanted to get their take on events. Hopefully it would give him some insight into what was behind Devlin's vision. It turned out that the farm was the home of Peter and his grandson Nick, who wasn't home at the time. Peter, old and frail, was clearly bothered by all of the attention that the farm had been getting and put the whole thing down to a massive, cruel hoax. Mossbank said his goodbyes to Peter, thanked him for his information, but as he was leaving, Peter panicked. He'd seen lights coming from the crop circle, unaware that it was actually Reynolds and Devlin at the heart of it. Mossbank calmed him down and said he'd go and check it out, everything would be okay, trying to cover for his colleague's clumsiness. It took a while, but eventually he got to the centre of the circles. PJ was there with his rig all set up, but then Devlin had a vision. She smelled smoke and she felt a burning sensation in her nose. She could actually see through the creature's eyes, but it wasn't in the sky or on a spacecraft. It was in the crops. It was looking at Reynolds. She tried to snap out of the vision, but it was too late to give him a warning, and out of the crops charged a huge beast, half man, half bull. The flames flickered from its nose and it slammed through the cameras straight into Reynolds, knocking him to the ground. Mossbank saw it all play out and the epiphany hit him like a ton of bricks. This wasn't about aliens. This was a minotaur. And this was no crop circle. This was the creature's labyrinth. "Finish them, Nick," growled the now familiar voice of old Peter, the farm owner, who was actually behind Mossbank. He'd followed him in. The former cop turned around and knocked Peter out with a solid right hand, but then he was rammed to the floor by the now transformed Nick. He managed to get his gun out and fire a shot into the Minotaur's shoulder, but it had very little effect on the beast. It just seemed to make him more angry. The Minotaur stood over him, with flames now billowing from its nostrils. But then it let out a cry of panic. It looked confused. You see, Devlin had gained an insight into the creature. When she had her vision, she connected with the creature's mind. The labyrinth was both the creature's power and its weakness. She set fire to the crops and got Reynolds to his feet. The Minotaur went into a wild frenzy, lashing out, but it was distracted. It was trying to put the fire out, and this allowed the investigators to get away. The fields and the farm eventually burned down. The remains of Peter and Nick were never found. In the basement of the farm, however, was a tunnel, and if you were to follow that tunnel, you would have found a small, Spartan bedchamber, and on its walls was a mural, a reference to an ancient, monstrous legacy. I hope you enjoyed today's story, and if you did, then please like and subscribe, and leave any comments below. I'll see you again with another tale.